Hello, it's Romanosky from Calgary, Canada. I'm shooting from the Lugnuts facility. And the video that I wanted to do today would be on my 2022 Hyundai Ioniq 5 EV. And I've owned it for almost a year, so I thought I'd do a year summary of owning the Hyundai in Calgary, driving it in the summer, in the winter. It gets cold here, down to minus 30 below Celsius. What it's been like to drive, how it's been to charge at home, the fast charging network, range in the summer, range in the winter, my actual experience with the car. So I'll break this video into sections. It'll probably be quite long, I'm guessing 40-45 minutes. And I'll break it in, I'll have a table of contents, I'll have sections, and so you can go to the section that most interests you if you don't want to sit through the whole video. Just about the entire lifetime, or the year that I've had the car, the battery's never even gone below 50%. I mean, I could absolutely have a battery half as big and it wouldn't affect anything, except actually the battery would be a lot smaller and lighter and I'd get more range, okay? So this whole fixation about what's the range, and the range being a worry for people, and range anxiety, and how far will my car go, and all that kind of stuff. For most people, that just doesn't matter. Whether it has 300 kilometers of range, or 400 kilometers of range, or 500, or 800, nobody cares, or very few people care, because you just plug it in at the end of the day. You drive your car and your kids to school, and you get your groceries, do whatever you need to do, go home, plug it in, and that's the end of it. Unless you're planning on driving long distances on the highway, okay? And even for that, your anxiety isn't gonna be how far your car is gonna go, generally. It's gonna be, is the charging station gonna work when you get there? That's another section of the video. Okay, so that's the math AC. Now, when we talk about range and battery size or whatever, we talk about consumption as well. So what's the consumption of this car? How many kilowatt hours does it use to go 100 kilometers? Okay, well that depends. Most electric cars will use about 20 kilowatt hours to go 100 kilometers. Just about any car or little SUV will use about 20, an average. You can get better than 20 if your car is a little bit more aerodynamic. So this one's kind of square and it's got all sorts of funny things and, you know, character lines and so on. That's not good. That takes a 1 or 2 kilowatt hours of extra energy to push through the air. The size of the tires makes a big difference. If you have small, skinny tires, the rolling resistance is less. So electric cars that are better than this, like the Ioniq 6, which is the same car, the same platform, the same battery, the same inverters, the same electric motors, but it's lower, it's more aerodynamic, and it has smaller wheels, and it gets, you know, maybe 10% better consumption than this car. There's a misconception that the efficiency of the EV is somehow buried deep in the power electronics of the inverters or something, and it really isn't. The electric motors and the batteries all come from, you know, a few suppliers. They're all basically the same. There's no real material, I mean, Lucid would argue differently, but generally speaking, all the components came from the same companies, and most of those are Chinese, and you just order how big a motor you want and how big a battery you want. And yeah, there's some cells that are cylindrical and some cells that are sheet cells, and there's differences, but not that much. The practical differences in efficiency and range on an EV come from its shape and how big the wheels are. All right, so, and just to dive down a little bit, if your consumption is 20 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, about a third of that is going to be aerodynamics, about a third of that is going to be rolling resistance, and about a third of that is going to be operating the car on the climate control and making it all work. And so those are the three components to efficiency, and you're not going to do much about climate control and so on. And so the differences in the car are going to be aerodynamics and the tires. Okay, so if you wanted the maximum possible efficiency, you would get an Ioniq 6, which is the same platform but more aerodynamic and with skinnier tires. All right, so this car gets in most conditions around 20 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. In perfect conditions, I can get it down to about 16 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. In the worst conditions in the winter, where it's 30 below, and I've got the seat heater on and the ventilation on and the demister on, and it's bad road conditions where I'm going starting and stopping, you know, I'll see more than 30 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. So the consumption in the worst Calgary weather, which is some of the worst weather you'll find anywhere, is double what the best case is. A combustion car is a little bit different. Combustion cars still have terrible economy in the winter too. It's not quite as bad though, because the combustion engine is inherently a lot less efficient because it produces a lot of excess heat. But in the winter, the heat comes in handy because it can heat the cabin. Therefore, you don't see that much of a difference in fuel economy from a combustion car than you do an electric car, because the combustion car wastes the heat the rest of the time, but in the winter, some of it comes in useful. So you might get a 40% reduction in fuel economy with a combustion car, but it can be double with this. So what does that mean for range? Well, if I take a 70 kilowatt hour battery and I'm getting 20 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers and I'm on the highway, I'm getting 375 kilometers of range, okay? If I wanted just to go for a trip on the highway. Well, in the winter, it's half of that. So how does that apply to me in Calgary? Well, we go to Canmore quite a bit. It's almost exactly 100 kilometers from our house. In the summer, with a full charge, 100%, I can go to Canmore and back and still have 50% battery. In the winter, I go to Canmore and back and I've got 20%. So I've used up in 200 kilometers just about all the battery. So it's fine. I charge it to 100. I don't always charge it to 100. I usually charge it to 80 because it's better for the battery. But when I know I'm going to Canmore, I charge it to 100. And I go to Canmore and back. It's 200 kilometers. I get back with 15% battery. That's the closest I've ever come to range anxiety. And there's lots of fast chargers between here and Canmore. I'm at one. So I haven't had any range anxiety. If I wanted to go to Lake Louise in the summer, that's 200 kilometers from our house. So in the summer, I could go there and back on a full charge. But in the winter, I couldn't. In the winter, I could get there, and then I'd need a charge. And then I'd have to figure out how to charge it, and there aren't any fast chargers in Lake Louise. And there are some level 2 chargers, but I'd have to charge it overnight, and I'd have to make sure the hotel is going to put it on the charger overnight. And just from experience and friends, you can't always count on a hotel doing that, and your car may or may not be charged in the morning. And now it's a little bit of anxiety as to, you know, where am I going to charge? Where am I going to stop? I'd probably have to go to Calgary, Canmore, stop at the Electrify Canada station, fill up, go to Lake Louise, back to Canmore, charge, and come home. For me, that's too much hassle. I'll just take one of my other cars that burns gas. I don't want to do that. Even in the summer, I can go there and back on one charge, but what happens if there's a traffic jam or whatever? I'm probably not going to do it. For me in Calgary, This car goes to Canmore and back, summer or winter. It's a range of 100 kilometers from our house, and it's a city car. I don't take it on the highway because the infrastructure is not robust enough, reliable enough, populated enough for me to make a journey where I don't have to worry about it, so I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to take another car. Okay. So, driving in the city, I charge to 80. I put on 60, 70 kilometers. I'm using, maybe 10, 15, 20 kilowatt hours of battery. My charger at home gives me 7.5 kilowatts. I maybe used 15 kilowatts driving around that day. I plug it in for 2 hours. I go from 60 to 80. Every day I come in with 60, charge it for a couple hours. In the morning it's 80, and I happily go on my routine and don't even think about it. When my wife drives the car, she doesn't even look at how much charge there is. She has no idea. She just plugs it in every day and never even worries about it. If I ask her how much charge is in the car, she won't know. She never looks at it. It's not a thing. It's not an issue. Okay. I have gas-powered cars. They range between, maybe 12 liters per 100 kilometers and 15 or 16 in the summer, and maybe 16 liters per 100 kilometers and 25 liters per 100 kilometers in the winter. So the EV is very close on the unit, which is around 15 or 20. But in a gas car, it's a liter of gas, and a liter of gas is $1.70, and in the EV, it's 13.5 cents. So, depending on which car I choose and how cold it is, I can either use a unit of fuel at $1.70 or one at 13.5 cents. Well, of course, 13.5 cents is a lot less than $1.70. So even in the winter, the worst day of the winter, it still is like 5 times cheaper to drive this than a gas car. So one of them is this car is almost free to operate. That's just operation. This car is a year old. I've never done anything to it. It's never seen the dealer. I suppose I'll change the cabin filter. There's no oil, there's no fluids, there's no nothing. The dealership keeps bugging me to go in for an oil change. There's nothing to do to the car, okay? I changed the wheels for winter and that's it. Servicing these expensive European cars can be anywhere from $1,000, $2,000 a year, and even a cheap car is $400 or $500 a year, plus, okay? So it's way, way cheaper to operate the car. The next thing is you have instant heat and instant cold whenever you want it, including remotely. So I can call up my phone and tell the car to heat up in the winter or cool down in the summer. Well, in Calgary, when it's 20 below and your car is sitting outside in a parking lot, it's really nice to just hit the button and have it warm up for you. I know gas cars have remote starters, but then you're burning gas and you're wrecking your catalytic converter. And it just doesn't feel right to let your car sit there and idle for a half an hour. Whereas if you've got electric power, you've got a big battery, it just heats up the car, okay? Or cools down the car. Well, you get used to that pretty quick. Every day I get in the car, the windows are defrosted, and the car's warm inside, and the seat heater's warm, and the steering wheel's heat. Okay, well, to me, that's luxury. In the winter, you could give me a Bentley Continental that's frozen, or you could give me this thing that's warm, and the more luxurious car is this, because it's nice and warm, okay? Forget about the Bentley and the hand-rubbed veneers and the whatever else it has. I don't care. I want to be comfortable and warm, and I want to see out of windows that are defrosted. That is luxury to me. So that's a huge thing where you have a big battery and climate control is being able to heat and cool the car, especially from your phone. You can charge the car AC. That's your home network. That's the grid. All batteries take DC. Okay, so if you're going to store energy, it needs to be in a battery. Your home has AC. It needs to be converted. So when you plug in at home, it's a lot slower than a DC fast charger because it's much more powerful, it's a much more expensive installation, and it's DC power, and it goes DC to DC, and it doesn't have to be converted, and when it's converted, it slows it down and you generate heat, okay? So at home, this is a major point with the EVs. Everybody charges at home, usually, okay? At least around here. Nobody I know with an EV relies on the fast charging network. The people that are at least the early adopters with the EVs have a place to charge it, and they have a level 2 fast charger. So you just get home and you plug it in, the same thing you do with your phone. There's various ways you can charge the car. You can charge it with the 120 volt normal extension cord, but that will only charge at a rate of, you know, maybe 1 kilowatt, something like that, 1.2, 1.3. Well, if you've got a 75 kilowatt hour battery pack and it's depleted and you're only charging it at 1 kilowatt, then it's going to take you 75 hours to charge your battery, okay, which is basically all week. That being said, and the question is, can I run this on a 120 volt extension cord? You could probably do it, but why would you want to? If for a few $1,000 you can get a level 2. But how that would look if you just had a 120 volt extension cord would be, it'll give you, you know, the power you get is the watts equals the amps times the volts. So you times 120 by like a 15 amp circuit, and then you take 80% of that, and you get to maybe 1.5 kilowatts or something like that, okay? So if you only drove, you know, 50 kilometers a day, you can probably do it if you charged all night. But if you had a day where you went any further than that, or you did it in cold weather, you wouldn't be able to repeat that. You'd slowly deplete your battery, and sooner or later, you'd have to go to a fast charger to top it up. So it's possible, but not recommended. What you really want to do is a level 2 charger. This is 240 volts, okay? And you want to hook this up to a 30, 40, or 50 amp breaker. In our case, we have a 40 amp service, and it's 240 volts, and we get 7.5 kilowatts out of that, okay? 7.5 kilowatts into 75 kilowatt hour battery is 10 hours. So if I ran this battery all the way completely out, it would take 10 hours to completely fill it. But I don't ever do that because I don't ever drive 400 kilometers in a day. Okay. But if I needed to, that's what my 7.5 kilowatts would do, 10 hours to charge 75 kilowatt hour battery. Because the car is converting AC to DC, there's a limitation as to how much power it can do, because they've got to transfer the power, and you need a device that will change it from AC to DC. This generates heat. There's only so much power the car can take. In this case, it's 11.5 kilowatts. So I could up my breaker from a 40 amp breaker to a 60 amp breaker, take the 60 times 240, times it by 0.8, and I could get something close to 11 kilowatts into the car. If I did that and I divided it into the 75 kilowatt hour battery pack, well, now I can charge the car in 8 hours. But I don't need to do that. I just don't. Like the daily routine on this car is driving 50 or 60 kilometers, bringing it home, charging for a couple hours, and that's it. because I only need to charge it a couple hours a day, I can replenish that any time of the day I want. We just have a 60s bungalow with a 100 amp service, but we have a 40 amp breaker for the AC. And so I split the power to the AC to the car, so I can't charge the car and the AC at exactly the same time, but I can charge the car at night. I don't need the AC at night, and I only need to charge the car for 2 hours, so I can time it when the AC is not on. It's just never been an issue. Okay, so when you have a level 2 charger and your daily routine is 50 or 60 or 100 kilometers, it just means you go home and you plug the car in for a couple hours and there's no big deal, and you never have to think about it. Okay, so here's our wall box on the exterior of our house and the arrangement that we have for charging the Ioniq at home. It's outside, and so we're particularly appreciative of the ability of the car to heat itself up in the winter, cool itself down in the summer, and we can do that with the app on our phone, and we can do that while it's plugged in so as not to use the battery capacity when we're driving. Okay, but let's just see what we've got here. We ran a 240 volt service from our electrical panel, and then we've got this junction box here, or this power box here, which has the big 240 plug, and then it has a couple of 120 plugs. The blue cord is what is supplied by Hyundai, and we can see that it is charging now, and this is on the 12 amp setting. So there's also a 6 amp setting as well. There's a button on the back which you can press to change the setting, although I think it may read that from the wall. I'm not sure exactly. So we've got 20 amps here. The limitation of this box is less than that, it's 12 amps. And I think the reason is that most people with a 120 volt circuit would only have a 10 or 15 amp breaker, and so there's a big safety margin. You wouldn't want to run the interior wiring at 100%. The recommended rating is 80%, so you wouldn't want to charge an EV for 8 or 10 hours at the full capacity of the wire. Okay, so this is a 20 amp service. We're only using 12 amps of that, and then if you take the 12 amps times the 120, you get 1440 watts, which is 1.44 kilowatts. And so now if I have this plugged in and I plug it into the car, it'll take a few minutes. There'll be an audible voice from the car saying charging started. And I can go over here and I can look at what it's doing. And I've asked it to charge from 80 to 90%, and it's giving me the 1.4 kilowatts, which is the 12 amp limitation in the portable charger at 120 volts, 144. So that's where you get to 1.4. Now, it's going to charge the battery from 80 to 90%. That's 10% of the battery. The battery's 75 kilowatt hours. So 10% of that is 7.5 kilowatts. And so it's telling me that at a rate of 1.4 kilowatts, it's going to put in 7.5 kilowatt hours. And that is going to, how long is that going to take? That's going to take about 8 hours. Those 7.5 kilowatts that it's putting in, and that 8 hours of charge at the 120 volt with a portable charger, that 7.5 kilowatts is going to get me in the summer around 40 kilometers. Okay, so if my daily routine is 40 kilometers in the summer, then I can plug this car in for 8 hours and do that every day and make do with the portable charging if I have a big enough 15 amp or a 20 amp circuit and I have this on the high setting. keeping in mind the consumption will double and the range will half in the winter. So that 7.5 kilowatts, well, you know what, that'll just warm the car up in the winter before you've even gone anywhere. Okay, you'll use that 7.5 kilowatts before you've even left if you want a warm car. And then, you know, the first little while of driving in the winter, you can get up to way past 30 kilowatts per 100 kilometers. So, you're 10 or 15 kilometers. That's all you're going, if you even get out of the driveway after warming the car up, if you're going to charge it 8 hours with 120 volt extension. So I would say in Calgary, in the winter, you would probably be only driving your car once every couple days if you think you're going to get by with just that cord. All right, so we don't use that, or at least we used it for the first few minutes or first few days before we got this box installed. So where this is giving, this charger is giving 1.4 kilowatts, the 240 volt system that we have, which is 240 volts. I have it on a 40 amp breaker, and we multiply that by 0.8 for a safety margin, and I get 7.5 kilowatts from this unit here versus 1.4. So that's roughly 5 times as fast, okay? And what that means is that I think we saw in the car at 120 that it was going to take 8 hours to get 10% charge, okay? So let's see what happens when I change it to the big plug. All right, so let's grab this. This is the Grizzly E charger. I think it was about $1,000, and I got this one because it's Canadian and because it was designed for very cold weather. And I think that the cord they use is a little bit more pliable when it's really freezing out. Of course, if we look here, this is just, if you pull this, that's just for the DC fast charge. So we're not using these 2 pins. We'd only use that at the big stations on the highway. So we'll plug the car in now. We'll wait for the audible warning. Charging started. And we've got the 240 volt system with a 40 amp breaker and times 0.8, and we get to about 7.5 kilowatts. And now you can see that it's charging at 7.5 kilowatts, and to go from 80 to 90%, which is about 7.5 kilowatt hours, which is 1/10 of the battery capacity. It's not like it was 8 hours and 30 minutes or something like that before, and we're down to 1 hour. Now, that 7.5 kilowatts in the summer, that gives me about 50 kilometers. In the winter, it might give me 25 kilometers. Okay. So, this is my normal routine would be to put about 15 kilowatts in there, and it would take about a couple of hours. And in the winter, I might be putting, 30 kilowatt hours in the car, and it might be taking 3 or 4 hours. And then if I need to use the climate control, I don't have to think about that because it might take 5 or 7 kilowatts to warm the car in the morning. And so I precondition it to start warming the car, half an hour or so before I get in. So that's a pretty big difference. It means that, in the summer, I would more than likely be depleting my battery every day and would have to go visit a fast charger to top it up. And I wouldn't, really want to be preheating the car too much because I wouldn't be able to replace it at 1.4 kilowatts. But once I mount the level 2 charger in, the 240 volt system, well, now I'm getting 7.5 kilowatts. And so now replenishing my daily use of electricity, is 2 hours in the summer and maybe 3 or 4 hours in the winter. Okay, so I hope that is helpful. And just to put it in perspective, the blue cord, which lives in there, that's 1.4 kilowatts. This installation is 7.5 kilowatts. the limitation of the car on AC is 11.5. So if I bumped the breaker up to 60, I could, if I redid the wiring, I'm not going to do this, but if I redid the wiring to 60 amps, then I would get something close to 11.5 kilowatts instead of the 7.5 kilowatts that I'm getting. But it might cost me $10,000 to do that, and I'm already charging the car for 2 to 4 hours, so I don't really need it to charge, 20% quicker than that. Okay. Lastly, let me show you this vehicle to load device. This is not standard with the car. It's a Hyundai optional extra. It was about $500 Canadian, which is probably 3 times what it should have been. But anyway, I got the Hyundai version. You can get aftermarket versions as well. So this allows you to power at 120 volts items from the car, using the car as a power source. And we have one outlet there, and we also have one that lives in the rear compartment and between the seats here. Okay, and so that says a maximum, let's try to get that here for you. That says a maximum of 16 amp, 120 volts. If you do the math on that, it's almost 2 kilowatts. And so we'll plug that in, and then we can go look at this lamp again, and it's on. So I think I've got 3 kilowatts in total. Presumably that'll give me the full 3 kilowatts, and I can do that or 2 kilowatts inside a total of 3 kilowatts. And that's enough to charge, to charge slowly an electric car that's got a depleted battery. And 3 kilowatts will run, what will that run? Oh, it'll certainly run your fridge and a bunch of household items. Like we're on the river here, so you never know when the power is going to get shut off if there's flooding or something like that. So I could hook this car up to the house if I have the right. I don't have that set up right now, but I could, in theory, run extension cords from this car and a power bar into the house, and I could hook up my freezer and my fridge, and I could power a security system. And I could probably do that. That's probably a couple of kilowatts. I've got a 75 kilowatt hour battery pack, and so I could be running that for 36 hours or something, and keep my fridge cold. Okay, so that is quite useful. Or if you go camping, or you have a compressor for your bike, or inflatable raft, or whatever you need power for, or make an espresso, these come in handy. Of course, my kids, when we're going to Canmore and so on, they'll plug in their devices and charge their iPads, and I'll use my computer and stuff. So that actually is unique in the segment. Not too many vehicles have the vehicle to load function like Hyundai does. The fast charging network, which if you read all the reviews, they'll say, oh, well, it'll charge from 20 to 80% in 18 minutes or something like that. And maybe it will somewhere, sometime, with a battery the right temperature, with a charger that works in the perfect conditions, in a laboratory. But if you go to the Petro-Canada station just west of Canada and you try to plug this thing in today, you're not getting any more than 100 kilowatts. And they charge by the minute. And it might not hook up the first 3 times you try. And you might have to change the charging station. And then somebody will pull in from beside you, and they won't be able to get it working. And they'll get frustrated and leave. And then it'll start raining. Be outside using your credit card, trying to get the machine to work, and then finally the machine works, and it drops it, and it works, and it starts charging. And this car with its 8 super duper 800 volt architecture, should be able to take up to 240 kilowatts and charge the car. And this thing's sitting there at 50, and you're getting charged by the minute, which means that it's as expensive as gas, and you're going like insane because you have this brand new 350 kilowatt charging station. It's only giving you 50 kilowatts, and it's like a completely unsatisfactory experience. Okay, so that's what you can expect from Petro-Canada. Electrify Canada is better, keeping in mind both these stations are only basically on the Trans-Canada Highway, 100 kilometers apart. There's only one Electrify Canada station in Calgary in Deerfoot City, and there's one in Canmore. Those are a little bit better, but I've never seen anything close to 240 kilowatts on this car. I've just experimented a few times with Porsche, with this. I never get anywhere. It's a totally frustrating experience. I tried it, I just get mad, forget it. This is a city car. If I'm going out any further than a 100-kilometer radius, I just take something else. All right, now I find out that this is a substantial impediment for many people buying an electric car, and everybody's figured out right now that Tesla's got it figured out and their stations just work. And if you have a Tesla, you can actually count on it. And so now everybody's adopting the Tesla standard, and GM and, well, 4 or 5 other manufacturers are changing. So now Tesla's probably going to own all the fast charging, and I don't know what's to become of Electrify Canada and Petro-Canada and some others with these 350 kilowatt stations that don't work. They just don't work. It's so frustrating. And the Electrify Canada is owned by the VW Group. That was pushed in after Dieselgate, and they had a mandate to get so many stations in at a certain time to provide electric infrastructure and to avoid costly penalties to do with the Dieselgate and their settlement. And they couldn't find one supplier for all of their charging stations, so they wound up hiring several suppliers with several different kinds of machines, and then trying to make them interface with, you know, a whole bunch of different cars, and it doesn't work. It just doesn't, they didn't make it work reliably. They just couldn't get it together. So that is a consideration. If you want to drive on the highway and you want one car to do both, you really have to think about that, especially if you're in Alberta, because there's no reliable infrastructure. And even if you do connect, you don't get anywhere near the power you're supposed to. All right, so you can see that's an item of frustration for me and others who try to do that. Okay. However, we just use the car in the city. We drive in the city, we plug it in at night, we charge it at 7.5 kilowatts, we spend a couple $1,000 getting the fast charger hooked up. It's just no big deal. We don't have any range anxiety, and that's just basically the end of it. We just treat it like our phone and plug it in at the end of the day. All right. I was I worked at car dealerships for 20 years. The last 10 years was Porsche. I was the general sales manager there, one of the dealers. I was the lead on the Taycan. So I was the person at the dealership who was most up to speed on e-mobility, went to all the trainings, and then really had to think about how to prepare our customers for e-mobility and liaise with the service providers who put the home chargers in, and really test out the infrastructure in the area and so on. Okay? Then I left after COVID, and so I thought I'd rebrand myself an EV expert. And what I did is I put together a buyer's guide in 2021, and I evaluated all of the EVs that were on sale then and were coming, and also the charging network, and also all the information about charging and kilowatts and kilowatt hours and charge rates and AC and DC and et cetera, et cetera. That link I'll put below. Subsequent to that, another year or so later, I did a 2-hour internet seminar on kind of everything you wanted to know about EVs, and I'll put a link to that. That's on my YouTube channel as well. I also did a video on this car at the 6-month mark about what it was like. Okay, so there's lots of other videos on this car besides this one, but what I did is when I did this buyer's guide, I went through all the stats and figures and did all the research, and I came to the conclusion that the Hyundai eGMP platform was the most advanced, certainly the most advanced for the money and the best deal. And so I went to the dealer before anybody knew what a Hyundai Ioniq 5 was, and I placed the order. And that's the only reason I got this car in August 2022, is because I ordered it in the spring or maybe the summer of 2021, and nobody knew what it was. and this is before the dealers started marking them up, and so I got it at MSRP just by virtue of being an early adopter of the car and by doing all the research. The reason I thought that the eGMP platform, of which the Ioniq 5 is one car, and it was the first car to come out, but subsequent to that, there's a Kia EV6, there's a Genesis GV60, there's going to be a Hyundai Ioniq, there is a Hyundai Ioniq 6, there's going to be a 7, so there's going to be maybe half a dozen cars, plus all the variants of those cars on the exact same platform. The platform differing by the size of the battery and the size of the motor on the front, rear, well, the rear or front and rear axles. Okay. The reason that I thought it was the best car was because it has 800 volt architecture. That's shared only with the Porsche Taycan and the Lucid. The 800 volt architecture manages heat better. It uses thinner wires, and because it manages the heat better, it charges faster. It's just a more advanced system, a notch above all the rest of the electric cars, okay? Save a Lucid and the Porsche Taycan, which are also 800 volt, okay? So we see that, the main benefit for that in DC fast charging. AC charging, it doesn't matter, but you see it on fast charging. Or at least you should see it. And we'll get to the DC fast charging network in another section. Okay, anyway, everybody else agreed with me, and the Ioniq 5 cleaned up virtually every new car award that there was, and then the year after that, the Ioniq 6 cleaned up every new car award that there was, and it's the same car, just a different body. So it's a total smash hit. The South Koreans are miles ahead of the Japanese and just about everybody else making the EVs. The Germans have good designs, but there's lots of software problems. Tesla's kind of in a league of their own, I suppose. But the South Koreans are really advanced when it comes to the architecture and it comes to the design. All right, so I bought the car, and that's how I got it, and I paid MSRP. I had to fight with the dealer a little bit because of all the stuff they wanted to add to it. I gave them a little bit, but anyway. So this is the top of the line model. It's the Ioniq 5 long range, which is the big battery, which is 77.5 kilowatts, probably 75 usable kilowatt hours, sorry. And it's got the all-wheel drive, so front and rear motor, and then those two motors together produce, I don't know, I think it's 250 kilowatts, which is 300 horsepower. We got that right, yeah. So it's around 300 horsepower, it's around 450 pound-feet of torque. It's around, I think, 4,600 pounds, so it's obviously a heavy car. It'll still do 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in under 5 seconds and go, I don't know how fast. It's plenty fast. Okay. There's significant packaging efficiencies when you have an electric car. And the benefit of that is that there's a lot more room inside for the equivalent footprint. Because the electric motors are a lot more compact, and because they sit in line with the axles, well now, and there's no, longitudinal gearbox in it, you can have a completely flat floor. Okay, and if you have a completely flat floor, then there's a whole bunch of interesting things you can do, including, this whole center console moves fore and back. I've got, fancy seats with lumbar that leg support, which I can bring. So this whole unit slides forward and back. And we have a lot of adjustments for the seat, including, the ability to fully recline into almost a bed. I suppose the idea is if you're charging it, you can take a nap when you're in the car, okay? And then the rear seats, you can move these forward and back, and you can set the backrest angle. And so you can vary the legroom in the rear versus the hatch. So because of the EV powertrain, because the battery takes up the floor, because you have compact motors in line with the axles, well, you can have a much bigger interior and more flexibility with the seats than you can with a combustion car. So this means that our family of 5 can travel comfortably with our luggage in a car that's not actually that big. It's maybe a little bit bigger than it looks, but we wouldn't be able to manage in a combustion car with this exterior size and footprint because of the intrusion of the mechanical bits and the packaging wouldn't leave us enough space. So we can get away with a smaller car that's more maneuverable, easier to park, easier to see out of than we would with the equivalent combustion car. That's a principal advantage of the EV powertrain and how compact it is. Okay, so the dealer network, and I want to try to be fair and kind. You know, the dealers have substantial investments in the property, in the building. They have corporate identity, which means they've got to spend a lot of money. They have limited control over the inventory they get, of the cars they get from the manufacturer. They're interested in making as much money as they can. And when there's a car that has a real shortage, they're trying to make as much money as they can off each car, and they're trying to, price it as high as they can get away with, and they do. If you had a dealership, you'd probably do the same thing. But this is a source of frustration for people who go online. When I bought this car, I'd never even been to a Hyundai dealership. I'd never walked into one. I knew what I wanted. I did all the research. I went online and I ordered the car. With this car, they just ordered it for me. They gave me a build number and they kept sending me stuff every month as to how it was progressing and when I could expect it. And it was all an excellent experience, until it gets to the dealer. And then the dealer is like, well, they want to sell you a bunch of extra stuff and the 3M, and they've got protection packages. Some of them have block heaters in them, which I had to explain to the lady that it doesn't need it. They're assigned a sales guy. I'd never even met the sales guy, but the only contact I had from the dealer was saying, well, your car's here and we want to get it for last month, even though it was like the 3rd of the month, so can you rush the paper in right now? And it's like, I haven't even talked to you before. The dealer hasn't even contacted me before. The only emails I got were from the manufacturer. I haven't heard from anybody for 2 months. Then you're saying, go pick up your car 3 days ago and start the warranty 3 days ago because you want to get it out because you want to get a commission on it from a salesman I've never even talked to before. It's like, really? And then you get there and then we gotta put the sticker on, the sticker on the car. It's like, I don't want any stickers. Oh, well, it's theft prevention. I don't need your theft prevention for $600. I have the car insured. Oh no, we got to put the sticker on the car for $600. And it's like, it's such a load of crap. Sorry, I don't want to say that. It's like such nonsense. And it's like, come on guys. And it's like, I don't even care if you need to charge me an extra $600 just because it's a high demand car, but just charge me $600. Don't put the stupid sticker on there. I don't want the sticker. I don't want the paperwork. This is garbage. Like, this is a valueless product. So you're just kind of insulting me by putting it on there. I could even deal with marking up the price, but if I go and I open my door and I see the stupid sticker, well, I just feel bad because somebody sold me something that's valueless and I bought it. So charge me the $600, but don't put the sticker on. And they wouldn't even do that. Oh no, we have to put stickers on it. It's part of our PDI. No, you don't have to put stickers on the car. You can do what the customer wants and leave the car alone. I don't need stickers on my car. Don't put stickers on the car. Oh yes, we have to put stickers. And it's like, really? Like, is this the value the dealer is giving me by like trying to get me to backdate the bill of sale and get it last month so the salesman I never met can get a commission and then the finance lady can make some money by selling me some stickers that are completely valueless? And it's like, it was all going so well until the dealer gets involved, and then the dealer has got to do their thing, and I'm sure the dealer principal said, you know, these cars are in demand and we can sell it for more money to somebody else, so make sure you sell this much stuff on the car, you know, otherwise you're in trouble. And so the staff have to follow along. And it wouldn't even be so bad if the staff knew anything about the car, which they don't. So they haven't been trained, and nobody, I tried to ask what cord came with the car, whether it was a 120 or a 240. Nobody knows anything. You're never going to get any, it's unlikely you're going to get any useful information from anybody at a car dealership. You just go there and they try to sell you a bunch of stuff you don't want, and you put up with it because there's no other alternative, and you're happy with the car, but you just shake your head at the dealer. And that's just, you know, that's sadly, it's not every dealer, by the way. You know, we didn't do that at Porsche. I know there's other dealers that don't do that, but if you want one of these cars, you got to put up with that. And then, you know, trying to get the end version of this car, well, you know, go make an inquiry from Hyundai, you know, put me on the list. They say select a dealer. Like, really? Do I have to select a dealer? I just want to put my name on the car. So you select a dealer. Then somebody calls you. Oh, come right on in. We want to talk to you. So you go in. Well, I want the end version. Oh, no. I don't know what that is. It's never going to come. You know, you gotta. You know, in fact, don't even think about these electric cars. You know, we only have one, but it's $15,000 over list, and you can have that. But why don't you have this hybrid over here? And if you try to order a car, I can't even tell you when it's going to get here. You probably won't get it. And you know what? I'm not even going to be here anyway. So why do I want to sell you a car that I won't even make any money on? Because the turnover at the dealership's like 100% every like 2 months. And you know, I don't want to do that. And my manager wants me to sell cars this month, and we have our target. So you know, how about this car over there that isn't an EV? And that's what you really want to buy. And it's like, really, Hyundai? Like, you go through the trouble to make a great car, you do all the press, you put up the website, I go to the website, I want to order the car, I want to order this fancy, exciting new N car, and then you give me the dealer and I get the salesman who just wants to get something out that month and sell me something on the lot and doesn't want to sell me anything that he has to order, and doesn't know what an N is anyway because he doesn't care. And is that really what you want to do? Like, why do the manufacturers and the dealers, why can't they, why are they so different in what they're trying to do with the brand values? Why can't they get it together? Why does it have to be so different? I just want to order the car like Tesla and get the car. The salesman doesn't know anything. He can't help me. He's not going to, any information he's going to give me is most likely wrong or self-serving. It's no value at all. I just want to order a Hyundai Ioniq N, get put on a list, get the car. That's all I want, but this doesn't work that way. You're forced to go to the dealer, okay? So that's the experience that most people are going to have. How do you get one of these cars at the moment? Well, you can go to the dealer, get one, probably without the roof, because I guess the roof has supply chain issues. Pay 10 or 15,000 bucks over, buy their winter protection package and their stickers and their this and their that, and you know, basically just agree to everything they want and get the car. Or wait 2 years, and who knows if anybody's ever going to call you. There's no process. You know, you have no idea whether, you know, they're just going to throw your thing away. Like, you just have no idea. So that, unfortunately, is where the dealers get let down. And if I was Hyundai, I'd be really quite concerned about this, because when I looked at this car, the other car that I was thinking about would be the Tesla Model Y. And when I spec'd out the top of the line Hyundai, it came to $63,000. When I spec'd out the top of the line Hyundai or Tesla Model Y, it was $105,000. Now, it was the performance version and so on, and it had more power and more range and more higher spec than this. But still, it was the top of the line version of this for 63 or 105. Well, they didn't have to think about that. I ruled the Tesla out. Well, now they slashed their prices in 2023. So I can get a Tesla Model Y for, I think, $65,000. Well, about the same price as this, okay? Now it's two-wheel drive and doesn't have the autopilot and so on, but for $75, I can get the all-wheel drive one. Well, now I have a choice, and I can go on my phone, buy a Tesla in 2 minutes, and it comes here, it's July now, I can get it like within 2 months. Nobody's trying to sell me a block heater. Nobody's trying to bring me in for an oil change. Nobody's trying to sell me the protection package sticker, BS. No, I don't have to put up with anything. I just order the phone in 2 minutes, get the car. So that, to me, is a real game changer because I'm getting nowhere with the dealer, Hyundai, trying to get the car I want. Nowhere. I might try to sell them this and see if I can work a deal, but I don't know if that'll work. And in the meantime, I can just go buy a Tesla. And the Tesla charging infrastructure works. And I can go on a long trip in a Tesla and not have to have anxiety about it. Not range anxiety, anxiety whether the charging system is okay? So the Tesla's got some plus, all the standard now looks like it's going to the Tesla standard. So everything is kind of going Tesla's way at the moment because A, Hyundai can't make enough cars, and B, they're relying on their dealer network. So that's just giving Musk more business. And I really wish somebody at Hyundai would, I'm sure they're thinking about it, but do a little bit better in that regard. Okay, so that's my review of the 2022 Hyundai Ioniq 5. But to sum up, I would say, one, for city driving, an EV is just a far superior car. About the Ioniq 5, it's very, very well designed and well packaged, and it has all the driver aids and features you'd like. I haven't done a thing to the car. It's been 100% reliable. The car doesn't need anything. It's a lovely car. I mean, this is a wonderful machine. They did a first-class job on it. It's fantastic car. It works for us. We have a place to charge it, a house, a charger. We never have to think about charging it. We never have to think about range. It's not even an issue. We don't have range anxiety. We drive the car around the city. We plug it in at night. It charges. We get in the morning and drive it. And there's just no issues whatsoever with range, with charging, anything. The transition, keeping in mind it's a city car, was seamless. I don't miss the combustion cars at all. Now when I have to start a combustion car, I'm annoyed because I have to drive a gas car when I could be driving my electric car. In the city, doing errands, driving around, dropping off the kids, getting groceries, running around in traffic, there is no comparison. It's a far superior machine. It's nicer to drive, it's faster, it's smoother, it's quieter, it's better, it's way, 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 way cheaper, it's less hassle. It's just a far superior machine, and there's no way, given the comparison, that I'd ever drive a combustion car if I had this to drive. This is just better. So refinement, quietness, performance, NVH, it's better. Climate control is way better. Cost of operation is way better. So you add it all up together, and there's no question in my mind whatsoever that this is just a better car. It's just for everything that we use a car for, most things we use a car for, it's just better. Yes, the batteries are a hassle, and charging it on the highway is a hassle, and we're still gonna need liquid fuel for some time, and it's not, this car as an only car doesn't work for everybody. If you don't have a place to charge it at home, it's gonna be a lot tougher. And if you want to drive it long distances on the highway, it's going to be a lot tougher. We don't take it on the highway. Charging infrastructure is not good enough. The charging, the DC fast charge network it's not reliable enough. Doesn't give the power it's supposed to. So it takes too long. And they charge by the minute. So it gets expensive and it's frustrating. So I don't do it. Drive combustion cars on the highway any more than a 100-kilometer radius. So I have multiple cars, okay? So with that, it's fantastic. I love the whole year with Ioniq 5. They did a fantastic job. I love the EV. It's just a really wonderful machine. I'm very excited to be an early adopter of an electric car and tried it out. It's been interesting and fun, and I love doing the research, and it's just a fantastic machine. You know, it's really held its value well because of the shortage, so even the depreciation's low, so it's barely cost me anything to drive it. So fantastic car. To buy another one though, good luck. You either pay over MSRP, 10, 15 grand, whatever it is around here, or you just go buy a Tesla. And that's the short. Okay. Thank you very much. Please like and subscribe. Romanosky from Calgary, Canada.